Eileen Gu is dominating at the Beijing Olympics. She is a superstar in the making. But that brings into question, with all the controversy in China involving human rights, some companies have found themselves in a very complicated dilemma. That dilemma is whether to proceed with their ads and sponsorships or pull them to make a moral statement and stand for something that's been an outstanding issue in China. Mega companies such as Coca-Cola, Visa, and more are facing pressure to cut ties with the event over the controversy. The big problem here with cutting ties with Beijing and China as a whole is business and revenue will be greatly affected. A very familiar situation that comes to mind involves Nike and the NBA when Nike faced a boycott in China for taking a stand, and also when at the time current Houston Rockets general manager made comments about the ongoing situation in China, and that act alone threatened potential millions of dollars in business between China and the NBA. As far as country goes, the US has joined a boycott, including the United Kingdom, Australia, Canada, and Denmark, and will not be sending any government delegations to the event in Beijing. Some companies are deciding to take a different approach and continue their sponsorships, claiming that their sponsorship is not an endorsement of anything in the host country, nor is it acceptance or approval of any wrong activities taking place by government. Overall, companies know the controversy that comes with involvement in such a huge event, but the theme stays consistent that they must operate regardless.
Eileen Gu is a Olympic freestyle skier that was born and raised in San Francisco, California. However, she has chosen to compete for her mother's home country of China. A similar article I've found to this would be Jordan Clarkson, who is born and raised in Tampa Bay, Florida, but he competes for the Philippines since he is half African American and half Filipino, instead of competing for the USA's men's basketball team. This is a great inspiration to the young kids in the Philippines and for the nationalism of the country when supporting their Olympic teams, especially with like a top skier from the US competing for China. There's a lot of pride, especially with Jordan Clarkson, who's in the NBA, which is the highest level of basketball in the world, which has always been the highest level of competition for basketball, and that's where the Philippines is huge on the NBA there. And it is just a big inspiration that these players are choosing to play for their families' home countries. And it's a great inspiration to all the kids and the fans around the world.
In my article, I wrote about Shane Ryan, who was an Olympic athlete in the US who actually moved to Ireland because there were more benefits in playing for the Olympic team there rather than here. And some of those were a larger pay raise, as well as actually becoming the #1 star on the team, who has actually broken over 10 records and holds those records still to this day. He is one of their prize swimmers, rather than if he was playing here, he would have not even probably played. But those are some of the advantages of playing somewhere else or overseas in comparison to staying in the US.
As previously mentioned, Eileen Gu isn't the only US athlete competing for another nation. At least 15 other Americans are under different flags. And the reason for this is because they choose to represent other countries because they feel like they have a higher chance of being selected and have an actual chance of representing their country as opposed to representing the US because the US has a lot of talent. Now, Eileen Gu's move is only seen as controversial just because she's actually winning and getting medals out of it. But the practice of switching nationalities for the Olympic Games isn't uncommon. In fact, a bunch of athletes have done it. Like I said, 15 athletes have done so before. And those athletes include a bunch of names, including Haley Copps, Isabel Atkin, Jasmine Van Lator Victorian, and just to name a few. But as you can see, plenty of other athletes chose to represent other countries despite being born in the United States.